Should we talk about Lucy Letby? Because I was going to talk about her last week and then I didn't talk about her. And I read that whole fucking article.
I mean, I'd hate for that to go to waste.
I did. I also, so basically, the New York Times, the New Yorker wrote an article about Lucy Letby and basically saying that the British justice system is bullshit and like she never should have been convicted, et cetera, et cetera. I'll get into it. But it's not available in the UK.
No, it's under embargo.
It's under embargo. So you can't read it here because we have like stricter laws in this country.
Everyone's read it.
Stricter laws in this country about like...
defamation.
Well, that and more about rules about like there shouldn't be information out there that could prejudice another trial. And there is another trial coming up for Lucy Letby. Not a retrial, it's a different trial. I'll talk about it. And so the article is technically not allowed to be read in the UK, but obviously you can read it. But it has the little listen to article function, but that doesn't work. So I had to read the whole thing, which is fine. I've done it, so you don't have to. So just for a quick recap on the situation, just in case anybody has been living under a James Corden-sized rock like I have. Lucy Letby was, of course, convicted of murdering 7 babies and attempting to kill 6 more. The jury returned not guilty verdicts on 2 other counts of attempted murder. So they convicted her on 7, attempted murder on 6, but not guilty verdicts on 2 others. Now, there is going to be a second trial this month, so June 2024, on 1 other attempted murder charge for which the jury could not reach a verdict.
Right.
So they said, we don't know. So that one is parked, new trial coming up. So this New Yorker article came out on the 13th of May 2024. And like I said, access has been limited in the UK in order to comply with a court order. Generally, like in the UK, articles are limited if they're going to prejudice a trial. And they're talking about the June one.
Right.
So if you read this article, very similarly to what you were talking about when it first came out before I had like read it in any depth, like the whole first page of the article really just, and it's a long form, it's a long read, does just really seem to, like you said, go on about the fact that she was a nice person.
Yep.
She got on with her colleagues. And like the key question they seem to ask in it is like, why would she do this? Why would she kill these babies?
Have we all forgotten about Harold fucking Shipman? This is what pissed me off about it. So my friends sent me it and were like, oh my God, like how could you possibly think she's guilty after reading this? And I was like, I don't give a shit if she was a nice fucking person. Yeah. Like that's not evidence.
No.
Like, anyway, sorry, go on.
No, you're totally right. They basically are saying like, why would she kill these babies? And they say, we have found no reason. That's what the article says. The article says, why would she kill these
dead babies?
And again, but they're hinting at more the fact of like, we can't possibly uncover a motive. But the thing that I would come back to, they say, we have found no reason why she would do it. There's nothing in her background. Now, these are separate issues. That we have found no reason. Let's start with that. Firstly, in a court of law, you do not need to, as the prosecution, as the state, prove a motive.
That's true.
You do not have to prove a motive. You don't have to say, this is why this person did it, because you're not expected to be able to see into the mind of somebody who has acted in a way that isn't logical, that even if it was logical, you don't need to be able to have read their mind about why they did this. It's not part of what the judge will ask you as a jury member to consider when you are thinking about whether this person is guilty or not. So firstly, this article saying we found no reason, and that's a reason for why we need to consider that Lucy Letby may not be innocent. That's not the standard in a criminal court. Yes, you could say, well, this is just an article. The standards are obviously lower. They're just asking you to think about it. There are lots of reasons that could be the reason that I could immediately start talking to you about. Angel of Mercy, power trip. There's sadism, straight up sadism. There's lots of reasons. Just because you haven't found a reason that makes sense to you, article writer, doesn't mean that there is no reason. So I found that quite strange. The next thing of there's nothing in her background. Again, so what? Like, what does that prove? That makes no sense about anything. So
that's like being like, oh, well, but Ted Bundy was on a suicide hotline. What a nice guy. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, Absolutely. It doesn't mean anything.
Absolutely. The next thing I found quite annoying about the entire thing was the article seems to attack the doctors who were involved in this case, who wanted an investigation, who wanted an inquiry into why so many babies were dying, who wanted an investigation specifically into Lucy Letby eventually. this author just attacks those doctors. And I'm like, why would you not want doctors whistleblowing? Because believe me, the NHS is not a place in which whistleblowers are welcomed.
Yeah, right.
Like if they're saying...
Why would they? Because it's their ward. Like it's going to be their ward under scrutiny.
Absolutely. The author also seems to act as if the NHS and the Countess of Chester Hospital, which is where it happened, threw Lucy Letby under the bus to save themselves. That seems to be like quite a narrative in there, that the doctors, that there's high deaths on the maternity ward, and that the doctors conspire along with the bureaucracy of this hospital and the management in order to find a nurse to throw under the bus and scapegoat for all of the peak or the rise in infant mortality that they were seeing. Again, my question there, is a mass murderer on the ward killing people a nurse? Is that better or worse than just incompetence or bad luck? Because the NHS, again, they're not going to go to the obvious, they're not going to go to the thing of we've got a murderer walking around. They're just going to say, half the fucking maternity units in this country are failing. Can we do better? Yes, we probably can. Also, these children were incredibly unwell. That's why they were in that specific unit. It's bad luck. They would have covered and obfuscated that. Why would they just throw a nurse under the bus in order to make this go away? Because this makes them look fucking awful and completely erodes public trust in that NHS trust anyway. So I don't see how that point makes any sense.
No, I don't. And my friend who sent it to me, who thinks she's innocent, was just well, surely the Occam's razor is that the NHS isn't up to scratch. And I was like, no, the Occam's razor is that Lucy Letby was the only one who was there every fucking time.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is the thing, is that the article also ignores all of the evidence that there is against Lucy Letby. It doesn't really... I had to go back and look at the script I wrote on Lucy Letby, because if you just read that article and didn't know anything else about Lucy Letby, you would think it was a miscarriage of justice. Because I had to go and remind myself what the evidence was against her. And I was like, oh yeah, there's all of this that they don't make any mention. There were doubts raised on the maternity ward around the high mortality rates. There was a spike in mortality rates. Then things turned on Lucy Letby. It wasn't just people were suspicious of Lucy Letby because of specific behavior. At first, they all really liked her. They thought she was a great nurse. Then it's the way in which they look at all of the incidents that happen and then look at who's on duty for all of them. And she's the one that's there.
The only one. It would be different.
Yes.
I would have more time for this argument if there was 2 or 3 that were there every time. She's the only one. Absolutely. And another thing I said to them when they were arguing with me, I was just she sent anniversary of death cards to families for years afterwards. Oh, yeah. Why would you do that? Absolutely. And why would you remember? Absolutely. And my friend was like, you'd absolutely remember. I was like, I do not believe that a nurse on a NICU ward is sending a card to every single family. And also, she wasn't sending them to every single family, was she? She was sending it to those 7.
No. And I think this is the thing. The article ignores things, all of the evidence against Lucy Letby, like I said. And the key thing that they ignore, even if you want to ignore everything else, is that 2 deaths from insulin that were found in 2 babies. That is fucking impossible. That is not something that is likely to happen once, let alone fucking twice.
Yeah.
Insulin is very, very clearly labelled.
And it has to be signed out by 2 other people.
Yes. And the fact that none of the children on that ward had diabetes, none of the children on that ward, it shouldn't have been anywhere near there. The fact that 2 babies died from insulin being injected into their bodies. If you are not at that point thinking that there is a murderer in your midst and the NHS had been found to cover that up, they should have, that hospital should have been fucking torched. That is completely ridiculous. They make literally they just sort of oh, well, and then there was the insulin case. And I'm like, are you fucking serious? This is what you're going to pass for journalism. It is so badly written. And I think that there is something in here why people have latched onto this article, right? I think there is something insidious anyway with Lucy Letby. I think we saw that when we did the episode, and there was a lot of people who kind of wanted to defend her, even if they didn't think she was innocent. There was kind of a lot of people that were I don't know, vibing with her, for want of a better phrase. I didn't really get it. Maybe it's because she seems like a relatable person to some people. I don't get it. But I also think, and this is something we've talked about lots, Hannah, before, is that there is this real feeling, this really obsession in the true crime community towards wrongful convictions. This idea that the state is evil, the system is evil, the system is corrupt, and therefore it must be the NHS, it must be, and I'm not saying the NHS is perfect, not by a fucking bloody long shot, but it must be the system. It can't be this individual one person that is doing something evil, which is what she was fucking doing. Because yes, sometimes people are just killers and it's not because of the system, it's because they just want to fucking do that. And that's what I believe Lucy Letby was doing. If you read the article, it also leans very heavily on one particular man, a man named Richard Gill, who's a professor of mathematics at Leiden University in the Netherlands. And he was the one who sort of started writing initially about his concerns to do with this case when Lucy Letby's trial first began. He makes it seem, and this article propagates that idea, that Lucy Letby was convicted based purely on statistics. That is not true.
No.
Firstly, that is not the case. Now, Richard Gill has been pushing this stance on statistics since the original trial began. And like I said, he basically made the point that the CPS was making a determination one way or another about these deaths simply using statistics. So saying that this spike happened in infant mortalities. Statistically, that means that somebody must have been murdering them. It couldn't have been anything else. He's saying that they were completely blinkered to the idea that it could have been due to like failings within the maternity ward. And then they just threw Lucy Letby under the bus. Right. If you dig into this more, firstly, that is not how the CPS prosecuted Lucy Letby. That wasn't the evidence they used against her. Secondly, he is comparing apples with fucking
Elephants,
horses. Like, because what he's basically saying, or what he's been misconstrued as saying, but I don't think so, I think this is what it's actually saying. He is making a comparison with things like SIDS deaths, right, cot deaths, where statistics are used. And again, we've seen in those cases, not always to best effect. But do you remember when we did that Kathleen Folbig case?
Yep.
And basically there was this kind of
three's murder.
Yeah, it was like one's a tragedy, two's suspicious, three's murder kind of thing. And that is not a perfect method by which to look at anything, but certainly not in this case. So, and that's also not what happened. The CPS in this case of Lucy Letby presented evidence at trial detailing why each death was A, a murder, and B, why it was Lucy Letby. This article just completely ignores that, completely ignores the fact that she was the only one on rota for the whole thing, and basically just says it was all down to statistics. The statistics are flawed. Lucy Letby was not convicted on statistical evidence. She was convicted on real hard evidence. And like I said, there's going to be another trial in June with a whole new jury to basically retry the case of this one remaining attempted murder case. So we'll have to see what happens. But I'm sure it will, reopen this whole entire can of worms when that happens. But I think the conviction was perfectly safe.
I do too. And I think I just don't think the article is particularly good.
No.
Like, I don't think it's balanced. I don't think...
And it annoyed me.
Yeah, I was annoyed by it too.